Hello everyone and welcome along to your Tuesday night edition of the TII podcast. My name is Craig Dennett and I'm your host this evening on what has been a very, very busy week. Not even a week, a very busy few days for Rangers. I'm joined tonight by our normal contributor JB, but we're also joined by former Rangers goalkeeper and now Al Ettifaq goalkeeping coach Andy Firth. JB, I'll come to you. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm okay. As you say, it was typical on Sunday. We were podding, talking about the future of Russell Martin and kind of guessing he probably won't go. And then an hour and a half later, he was gone. So, yeah, and then the fallout since then has been quite interesting. So, yeah, it's going to be, I keep feeling as if I always say this, but it's going to be an interesting few weeks ahead as we see who the new manager is going to be and, as I say, the fallout of everything. So it should be good.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be an interesting few weeks ahead, and the rumours have already started as well. Steven Gerrard's one of the leading ones. It feels like he's the leading one every single time there's a new manager. I feel like I've done this show like 5 times in the last 3 years, so it should be old hat.
And Craig, we probably need a disclaimer for Andy as well, because he had agreed to come on prior to any announcements or anything. So yeah. just to be crystal clear, it wasn't anything else.
Yeah, very good timing though. And Andy, coming to you, welcome along. How have you been? What have you been up to recently? You've been, enjoying watching Rangers from afar, but that's maybe less so the case recently.
Yeah, it's been obviously a difficult start to the season. Still trying to watch as much of the games as I can and stuff like that. Still keep in touch with a few of the lads that are there now, lads I've played with over the years. So yeah, difficult start to the season. Obviously the news has come out the manager's gone, so yeah, just hopefully the club go in the right direction and we get the club back on the right track.
What's that like for you, I guess, as someone who has grown such an affinity to the club during your time there and then kind of watching it from afar? Is that a bit of a weird experience? Do you just take on the role as a fan effectively, but with a bit more insight, or what's that?
It's all I was there anyway, wasn't it? I was just a fan there for 3.5 years anyway, so nothing's changed. I'm just doing it from a little bit further away this time. Yeah, it's obviously a lot different. Obviously, most of the lads I shared the dressing room with have all moved on. I managed to take the little man for his first game in pre-season, the Bruges game, so that was nice. But there's only really 2 or 3 lads there that I played with that are still there. So obviously most of the faces have gone from the playing staff. A lot of the coaching staff have obviously moved on as well in the last couple of years since I've been away. So there's not as many people I know there, but obviously it was a pretty decent 3.5 years I spent there, and yeah, I always love watching the games when I can, and not so much this year, but hopefully we'll find the right way soon.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess some of the coaching staff that you knew might well be making a return, but we'll come on to that very shortly. But JB, you were obviously on Sunday night and you were saying that didn't really feel like he was going to be sacked. I think we'd all kind of resigned ourselves to the fact that he was just going to get so much longer than we thought he would. But how are you feeling now that you've had time to sort of digest the news, and what are your reflections on his time at the club?
Yeah, it's weird because growing up as a Rangers fan, it's not what we done in terms of going through managers, and then all of a sudden over the last few years, it's just been like the doors have just been open every couple of months, doesn't it? I mean, did somebody say this is our 3rd manager of the year? Would that be about right? In terms of by Ferguson, Clement, and obviously with a bit of caretaker stuff in there. So over the years, we weren't used to that. We were used to kind of long-term stability. But we've kind of got used to in recent years of just the revolving door of managers and links. And one thing we all know, and I've said this a few times, that you can't really unite Rangers fans that always got a different opinion. Like 50 people will say something's black, 50% will say something's white. But one thing was for certain, Russell Martin was 100%. He had to go. There was I didn't see anyone who was kind of saying he could turn this round. So the last few days has kind of been back in that haze. I think we're now starting to see kind of the forefront of the people coming to the forefront, who I'm sure we're going to get into. I think there's one particular name that's kind of jumping out to most people who I don't think people will be disappointed. I don't feel as if it's going to be as a left field, because Russell Martin no doubt was left field. He got off. He had to get off to a flyer in order to for the fans to accept them. And then in terms of the other links at the time, if you Ancelotti, there was a few people jumped behind that and thought, oh, that could be really good. I had more fears about Ancelotti than I did have Russell Martin, because I thought what Russell Martin's tried to do in a short space of time, that's what Ancelotti might have tried to do. And then prior to that, you were looking at, it was Clement or Muscat was kind of the shootout. So yeah, we're in that same period of time, albeit a little bit earlier in the season than normal. So, but it was definitely an early Christmas present, if nothing else.
Yeah, it definitely was. Jesus, I hadn't even thought about Christmas. I actually read earlier on it's nearly 90 days to Christmas or something like that. Yeah, Andy, what's it like? I guess as a player or being involved around a team where it's just not working for a manager. They know it, you know it, the fans know it, but everyone's just continuing on to the next game, What's that like? It must be quite a weird kind of experience.
Well, it was a lot different from as a player. I never had manager sacked that I can remember. Obviously Steven left and took the Villa job when I was there, and then I left under Gio before he got sacked. So changing manager was obviously because Steven had done so well at Rangers. He took the Villa job, but yeah, I never had to really deal with. It's not something I've gone through as a player. Obviously, we had our challenges last season with Steven here, where it was joint made the decision to end the work here. So that was a difficult spell from the coaching side. But yeah, it's hard.
Does it always get to the stage where it's like something's got to break our way? Like the next game's got to be it, and we'll start something. Or does there really come a point where actually everyone's like, I don't see this turning round, and I don't know where we go from here?
Yeah, it's sort of like I listened to his podcast. He did a podcast with Ferdinand that came out today, and he was saying about I think it was the last 6 or 7 games at Villa where he just said he was trying everything to try and get a reaction and try and turn it, and he could just feel the pressure was coming and the lads weren't responding, and it just kind of slipped away. And it's hard when you're in a bad run of games. That doesn't matter what level. It's hard once you're in that rhythm. You're supposed to be winning games, and the players will start doubting themselves. The fan are bringing the pressure. The staff will be doubting every decision they're making. And whereas when things are going well, obviously I've only been a full-time coach for the year and a bit over here, and the times when it's going really well, everything is so easy and doesn't really take as much planning. It just seems like everything just kind of falls into place. And whereas obviously when you go on a couple of games without winning, and then you start really thinking like, oh, can we do this? Can we do that? And you're really trying to work a way to get a reaction out the players and work out how to get into the next game with a fresh start. But it's the same as a fan. When you watch the games as a fan, when things are going well, you just turn up to the game thinking, oh, here we go, let's have it. Boys are flying 3 points. And then I'm sure for the last couple of weeks, everyone's been going to the games thinking, fucking hell, here we go. Let's see what we've got today. So yeah, it is very similar as a player and as a fan.
Yeah, I can see that sometimes on the faces of coaches and managers as well. When we're doing that, JB, before we just kind of move on to speak about the different candidates that there are, the different rumours that there are. There was also the open letter that came out from Andrew Kavanagh and Parag Marathi yesterday. I don't know, all days are merging into one at the moment. But they took responsibility for making the wrong decision. I don't know if that responsibility extended to the length of time that they carried on with it. I don't think that was quite specified within the open letter. They also spoke about the process being underway and that they were both heavily involved. I think that, from my understanding, is because Patrick Stewart led on the appointment of Russell Martin almost exclusively, and that's they've obviously not been happy. No one's been happy with that decision, and they're very much more inserting themselves into that. Does that give you more confidence, less confidence, any confidence that they are more involved in it? And what did you make of the open letter?
Yeah, I thought it was good. I thought it was timely because for so long now we've just we've hated the fact that there's been no communication coming out of the club. It was almost a case of everything was just kind of a closed door. So for them to come out and be brave enough to come out with a statement like that, I think people were probably looking for more from the statement. I think people were kind of looking for Kevin Thelwell and Patrick Stewart to be gone on the back of that as well. I know there was rumours circulating that could potentially happen. Again, sometimes we just got to hold the head a little bit and just try and get a little bit of stability. Do I think that Patrick Stewart has done a good job so far? Absolutely not. Has Kevin Thelwell hit the ground running? Absolutely not. I think some of his signings are questionable. But that said, everyone that we've signed, there's a good player in there. We just haven't seen it on the pitch yet. You don't end up at Rangers unless you've got something about you. So it's almost a case of it needed that fresh start. So for them to have got to be in last chance saloon. They'll know that this management appointment has got to be bang on. Hence why I think the person that we go out and get, it's going to have to be someone that the fans will take to. I'm not saying they should be fan pleasers, because they've got to do the right thing of who they think is going to win games, not who the fans think is the best appointment. But we're like no other club in the fact that we can kind of smell it if something feels right. If you think about Gerrard when he come in last time, he had no right to come in and kind of hit the ground running and do what he'd done in such a short space of time compared to the mess that he took over. That shouldn't have worked if you're going by what the club needed at the time. The club needed stability. The club needed an experienced man to put their arms around it. We went for a lad who's just stopped playing footy. He managed a couple of the youth teams and the under-23 stuff in Liverpool. And then he come in, but he made it work. He made it his own. And the fans ran with him because, one, he was a figurehead for the club. I'm not going to compare him to Walter Smith and Graham Souness because I think that would be a bit harsh. But he had that aura about him, which I'm sure Andy can confirm in a bit. But he came in from day one and everyone was like, I'm backing this fella. I'm running with him. Things weren't great. Do you know what I mean? There was times where we had some really disappointing results, but I genuinely felt he was hurting as much as we were hurting in them results. However, with Clement, with Beale a little bit, and lastly Russell Martin, he didn't feel as if they were hurting as much as us. Whereas Gerrard can't hold it back. He can't hide for anyone. He can't put a mask on. He might put a mask on to protect his players, but we just knew that he was hurting. So again, that's why I think he got that little bit more extra time and that little bit more leeway. He would know what he was coming into. So some of the names which we'll get into in a second, if they don't hit the ground running, the knives will be out, unfortunately, whether we like it or lump it. That's just within the Rangers fans' DNA now. Talking to a few guys earlier in terms of, are we entitled? Do we see ourselves entitled as Rangers fans? I think we do, and I think we've got a right to. I said because our history dictates that. There's not many clubs in European football that can actually do that. You could probably name them on one hand. The teams that probably do feel entitled. So for us, we want the best. We want to be winning. We want to be. That's where we want to be. And we need somebody that feels that passion as well. And I don't think we've had that in the last few appointments.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Andy, Jermaine Defoe was interviewed. I had no idea what event he was at, but he was interviewed either earlier today or yesterday. And he said he was talking about the fact that Rangers is different to any other football club that even he's ever been at, and that the pressure that's on it, and that players need to go there aware and ready of what's expected of them. And how is that as a player, and how is that amongst a squad for Rangers, and your experience, and how difficult is that? Because I think as a fan looking in, you see some players embrace it fully and they run with it and they become fan favourites, but more often than not, you see players crumble under that pressure. What's that like, and how would you describe that from a player's perspective?
It's just a unique place, isn't it? I always have the arguments and the conversations with my mates. Obviously, grew up a Liverpool fan myself. All my best mates are Reds, and like through my lifetime as a Liverpool fan, the competition has been sometimes United, sometimes Chelsea, sometimes Arsenal. They've got the derby with Everton. Like, it's never just one team forever. Glasgow is the smallest city in the world. It's a fishbowl. Everything is a competition between green and blue. Everything. It is the most intense, crazy place that you can imagine for football. So it's the same as fans. It's the same for players. It's when things are going great, you run the city, you're on top of the world, you've got free reign. As soon as you lose 2 games, it's like get in your house, shut the curtains, make sure you win the next game. Like it's a crazy place to be involved in. And obviously JD's had the career he's had, and what a player, great fella, but he would never have had that pressure. He'd never have had that, like the environment of Glasgow, of Rangers, of being the big name that he was in the Premier League for England, the goals he scored. But yeah, having that need to win, you have to win every week. You have to. And even in Europe, when you're against better teams, you're still expected to win, or you never get beat. There's not many clubs in the world where it's demanded you win every week, every season, and deliver silverware. It's and it's the demand that should be there, and that's the thing for players going there. There's obviously been loads of really good players over the years that have gone there, and it's not quite worked. But it's just, if you've never dealt with that pressure before, you don't know until. That's the thing. You can sign all these really good players until you put them in the environment with the fans there, with the demands in place. It's one thing being a good player. It's then being able to be a good player in them circumstances when the pressure's on and you've got to go and deliver. So that's the big thing for the new manager coming in and the players there now and the new signings in the future. It's it's the best place in the world, but it's a pretty tough place to play football as well, which is why so many have gone there and not done so well.
I've always wondered if it's
sorry, Craig, you're probably asked the same thing as me. Could you see it in players' faces in terms of, because you came from a huge club in Liverpool, so you'd have kind of always grew up with them expectations, albeit through youth level. Could you see it when players come in and you go, he's got something about him, like in terms of training or bounce games, and then they eventually start playing a run of games, and then you go, oh, wait there, he's struggling with the environment. As players, would you talk about the situation, or would it almost be a case of leave it to individuals to manage it themselves? How would that feel?
Not particularly. Like there's one person's name. I'm going to bring him up because I saw a tweet about him last night because he's going into this Ballers League thing. But like Brandon Barker is a fucking unbelievable football player, and I will argue anyone to the death. I've played Barks all the way through with the same age. He came through at City. Had many games against him. He's a fucking, I don't know if I'm allowed to swear, but he's a fucking top player. And in training, he'd just make people look silly. And then he just couldn't quite get it into games for some reason. I don't know what the reason is, but like you could watch Barks train Monday to Friday and you'd go, he's the first name on the team sheet. He's a joke. He's right foot, left foot. He's quick. He'll score. He'll create. He's unbelievable. And then for whatever reason, he just couldn't quite do it on a match day. And there's millions of them. Every footballer will tell you all the same stories. There's millions of players who could not give a flying toss what happens between Monday and Friday, but come Saturday, 3 o'clock, he'll be ready. And then there's the opposite of Monday to Friday. You can look amazing. You can do it on the training pitch, but then put 55,000 around you and it soon becomes a different player in a different environment. You just can't quite produce the same thing. So, yeah, obviously I never had the chance to do it. So it's easy for me to sit here and say some can do it, some can't. But yeah, it's that pressure on you when there's 50,000 people watching. Some players can't handle it.
Yeah, was it Trent Alexander-Arnold that said that Brandon Barker's the hardest player he's ever played against or something like that?
Trent made his 21th debut for us. We played City at Anfield. We got beat 4-0. And that was Trent's first game for the 21s. He must have been 17. And honestly, I just remember thinking, like, oh my God, like this was the first time I'd ever really seen Trent play properly. And I was like, oh, wow, you've got a lot of learning to do. But Barks was as good as it got for that age. And then shows what I know about football, doesn't it?
The 55 season where there was no fans, did you not maybe think that might have been the time that Brandon Barker could have really opportunity to really excel? He showed glimpses at times, you know what I mean? There was a couple of performances because he performed really well against Rangers for Hibs. I remember that 4-4 game. I think was it the 4-4 game, his last game before Gerrard came in. I'm sure he man of the match down the left. He terrorised Tav. You just
Tav,
wonder,
he always used to get on to Tav about that one.
Yeah, you just wonder whether, because they do talk about the some of the Rangers players during the 55 season, there was no fans, so therefore they were able to express themselves that little bit more and be that little bit more braver. Do you not think it's a shame that he couldn't maybe kick on there? Because what a perfect opportunity for that type of character. I'm sure there's loads out there, as you say.
Yeah, maybe, yeah, but sometimes it's not even the fans, it's just like...
Yeah.
It's still a game of footy. Yeah, it's the pressure he'll put on himself inside, the pressure he wants to deliver. Something like the games, when you're playing games, it doesn't really matter. Like when you get used to it, it doesn't matter how many people are around the ground. Like you feel when there's a big game. Like even if the game's empty, the Old Firm away at Parkhead with no fans there is still like you're still going there and you feel like it's an Old Firm. I know it was slightly different, but like you can't tell me Greaves isn't going into that game like he's going to treat it any differently if there was 50,000, 60,000. It makes no odds. You're still playing Celtic away at Parkhead and you're trying to win a league. It doesn't matter how many people are there. You could put 2 million people there. It's still the biggest game of the season.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Mentality was obviously one of Russell Martin's favourite words in his post-match press conferences, and I think that's where we are as fans looking now, JB, in terms of it felt very much Russell Martin was a system manager and he was part of that small group of managers that were a trend for a while in terms of its system above all else. Doesn't matter what the results are, doesn't matter what the performances are, the system will get us there. We just need to get the system right. But he always pointed to the mentality of the players, and I guess that's why I think a lot of people are clambering for Steven Gerrard to come in. But do you feel like we need that Rangers? You almost need to. I can't remember who it was that I saw. Might have been Tim Sherwood, actually, of all people that I saw on Sky Sports News, saying that you need to win first and almost earn the right to then implement a system, rather than implement a system in the hope of winning further down the line at Rangers. Is that feels right to me in terms of what the expectation is here? But is that how you feel?
Yeah, most definitely. I think it's almost a case of win under any circumstances. I don't care if it's pretty. I don't care if it's long ball. I don't care if it's ticky-tacky. Whatever it needs to be at Rangers, it just needs to win. What you've got to remember is in most games, we've got better players than the opposition. That's a fact. So therefore, if you can then add in the hard work and the players that can then show that ability that they've got, more often than not, you should be winning games. And no, it's not that easy, but more often than not, you should. As long as you set up, you're organised and you're drilled. My concern under this Rangers team is it just looked as if the players looked confused. There was a situation against, I point to it a couple of times now, there was a situation against Livingston where Livingston should have went down to 10 men. Can't remember who it was, got wiped out. Was it more? Can't remember who it was. Gassama got wiped out. That should have been on a second yellow. Tav was too busy talking to the bench, getting instructions, rather than getting in the referee's face and going, that's a second yellow. It almost felt as if everything was just to follow this particular process. And at times the players looked confused and players looked scared, both in and out of possession. And I don't think if you have that with somebody that isn't as driven, and Andy might be able to tell us different, but somebody that kind of wants you have to stand there, you have to go there, don't you cross him. It almost felt as if everything was too rigid. And if it didn't work, we played our best football when it was 5 minutes to go in games, because it was like balls to the system, just get it in the box. And I'm not saying that's the style I want to go down, but I want to see me Rangers team. I want to see a team that I can relate to, and that's one thing we did see under Gerrard. Results weren't perfect. I said earlier, might go 4 or 5 games winning on the bounce, and then we'd have a disappointing draw or disappointing defeat, especially in the first 2 seasons. But as I say, you almost felt as if there's something there, there's enough there. We just needed to find that consistency. So I think the next manager has to be more of a figurehead and someone that we can stand behind, and the players want to go to war for. Without being too dramatic. But however, I don't think your Danny Rolls and your Russell Martins and a couple of I'm going to say Graham Potter, Brian Potter, Phoenix Knight, Wheeler in. I don't think these type of guys is exactly what we need right now. So I think it's going to be an interesting appointment who we move, but I just hope we move towards that more figurehead that we can get behind.
Yeah, I keep saying last one before we move on to talk about the managers, but this is genuinely the last one before we move on to talk about the managers. Andy, do you feel that Rangers did look almost overcoached to an extent in the games you've seen? Do you feel like the players were too worried about where they were standing and where they were supposed to be rather than just playing to their strengths and going with the flow of the game?
It's hard, as a broader answer, watching a lot of football across all the leagues, obviously watch loads over here in Saudi, loads in the Prem, watch the Rangers games when I can. It like you'd mentioned before about the managers who've got their style and they don't care about the result. I feel like there are a lot of teams and managers like that, almost in a selfish way. Like obviously Vincent Kompany's doing an unbelievable job at Bayern Munich, did an unbelievable job with Burnley in the Champ, and instead of going to a more pragmatic way of, right, how am I going to get points to stay in the league? It was, no, this is what got us here. We are dying by this. And obviously Burnley get relegated, but he gets the Bayern Munich job. So it was a bit of a strange situation. It does seem like there are quite a few managers like that who have their principles and we are playing this way. And I don't care if we're winning 5-0 or losing 5-0. We are doing this and that's it. Obviously Russell Martin's got his track record of doing the same sort of thing at MK Dons, Swansea, Southampton. It's always been, this is how he believes football should be played. This is what he wants his teams to look like. And obviously it's a big difference from what we saw under Clement up until March. And then obviously Barry came in and changed it and did his interim role for 2 months. So going from someone like Clement to, a lot of fans would say we didn't particularly see too much of a style at times with Clement, to then go from that to Russell Martin, this is the style, we are living and dying on this style in 6 months' time, whilst turning the squad upside down and bloody 10 in and 10 out. It's been a big summer of change. Obviously, it hasn't gone to plan. So, yeah, a lot of the time it didn't look how we wanted a Rangers team to look. I'm obviously certain it didn't look how Russell Martin wanted it to look on the sideline as well. So, yeah, it just didn't, for whatever reason. I obviously aren't on the inside and I don't know why it wasn't quite working, but it just didn't seem to fit Rangers. It didn't seem to fit the players we had. It didn't seem to fit for whatever different reason. But that was the big thing. It just didn't really fit the whole picture of what we wanted, what the manager wanted, what the players wanted. It all just looked a little bit disjointed.
Yeah, I think that's really fair. Right, let's talk about the managers themselves. JB will talk about, there's been a latest update from Ben Jacobs. I think he's the Telegraph. Can't quite remember off the top of my head, so apologies to him if he is listening, which he won't be. But in terms of the managers that kind of came out the woodwork straight away, and in terms of ones, I never know if they're ones fans would be interested in, or if agents have already spoken to media or whatever, a combination of the two, probably a combination of the two. But Steven Gerrard, Kevin Muscat, Sean Dyche was in there, Derek McInnes, Danny Rowe. I think those were the five that really kind of jumped out straight away. The latest that's been reported by Ben Jacobs is that Steven Gerrard is the leading candidate for the Rangers job, but senior figures at Ibrox are waiting to hear if he wants to return and if it's financially viable. There's been a Daryl Curry I saw on Premier Sports said that he's had it, I think basically almost from the horse's mouth, if not from the horse's mouth itself, that Steven Gerrard is interested in the Rangers job. So putting two and two together, I think that one will go further into that process. It says that Kevin Thelwell has also sounded out Sean Dyche. The pair worked together at Everton, but Dyche is not thought to be keen. Hearts manager Derek McInnes is another potential option, even though the current Scottish Premier League leaders will fight to keep him if a formal approach be made. I think there was a reporter from TalkSport, Alex Crook, potentially earlier on today, that spoke about the fact that Derek McInnes would be interested, but he's not going to put his name in the hat. He would need to be approached for it. JB, where do you stand at the moment in terms of who would you like, who would you not like? Was there one or two front runners for you at this moment in time?
Yeah, I mean, I think the names you've mentioned there, I think I was pleased to see Sean Dyche kind of ruled out. Not because I don't think he'd be a good fit, because I actually think not a disappointment, because straight away he's going to be branded as Thelwell's boy. And I'm sure Sean Dyche wouldn't like that tag, and he'd operate in his own way, having obviously, as you know me, close links to Everton. But I say Sean Dyche definitely would be his own man. He was at Burnley. He had the running of the place at Burnley. He almost had the keys to the door, didn't he? So I think that one for me didn't feel right. I think where we are right now, he was one of the ones I mentioned earlier. He'd had to have come in and won the first 20 games for the Rangers fans to back him. Whereas just because of them links with Thelwell, plus the fact we keep going on about what a special club we are. I actually think Sean Dyche could handle it, the heavy lifting and managing the press and everything else. And he's had a good career. If you look at Burnley, he done a podcast was it just not long after he left Everton, and he spoke around at kind of some of his philosophy stuff and some of the stuff that he done and some of the players he's turned over. Kieran Trippier, Jay Rodriguez, like Michael Keane. Some of these players Danny Ings took from nothing and can kind of spun for big money. So we can coach and make players better. I think the concern for me again with him would have just been if he didn't hit the ground running, then it would have been a problem. But as we say, it appears he's ruled himself out, which is fine. I think the other two big ones before we get on to Gerrard would be Kevin Muscat is kind of one that was heavily linked prior to Clement coming in. It's an interesting one because again he appears to have that aura about him. He's got that little bit of nastiness, which I definitely think you need to manage Rangers. And he's done well in his previous career. I think he would be nowhere near the conversation for me if it wasn't for Postecoglou, because of the fact he's followed that route, and he's worked very closely with Postecoglou over the years and plays that type of style. My only concern with that is Postecoglou brought the best players that he could identify from them leagues over to Scotland, and only 50% of them worked. So therefore, I don't think we're in a position right now that we could go wait till January and then maybe bring a load of players that he's worked with in the past and hope that they hit the ground running. I don't think that would work. Have we got the personnel to be able to play the type of football that Postecoglou like to play? Therefore, what Muscat likes to play? I don't think we have. We've got a group of players who are very good on the ball technically, how it was showed previously. They're very good on the ball technically, maybe not in the last few months. I can't see a work rate within this team. Now, that could change naturally under the right manager and the right structure, but I haven't seen the work rate. I haven't seen players run through brick walls. When we were getting beat away in Bruges, I seen a group of players that chucked it, heads were down. Do you know what I mean? It wasn't a case of right, I'll show you. Right, come on, lads, we'll keep fighting for possession, we'll keep fighting for that ball. That just hasn't been there this season, and I think you would need a little bit of that from that type of manager. That said, I've seen enough and heard enough in regards to the way he does play, and the way he presents himself is really good. So if he could be again surrounded by the right coaching team, I think that could be an interesting appointment. And then McInnes, who's been mentioned, I think McInnes for me again falls under the category of would have to start well for the fans to back him. Said that a couple of times now, but I definitely think that's where he would land. It would almost be a case of, okay, he's had 15 good games at Hearts. We weren't crying out for George Bailey all these years ago. Do you know what I mean? So he got off to a good start. Aberdeen got off to a great start last season. Now, McInnes has got a little bit more to his locker, and the fact he's played for Rangers would understand the expectation. He's given us some absolute nightmare games over the years. He can make his teams hard to beat, so on and so forth. Got a little bit of an eye for a player, he showed at times, albeit you could argue that's very much been down to the Tony Bloom effect. I would say the plays he's been given a decent caliber of player to work with at Hearts. So for me, no, I think that one's a risk, which then leads me into the natural one, which I think if you'd have asked me the day after he left, would I welcome him back? I'd have said absolutely no chance. I don't want to see his face ever again. I wasn't quite the guy punching the cardboard cutout, but I was close. But now that time's a healer, I think I'm back on the Steven Gerrard train. I had a look at Steven Gerrard's signings after we won the league. and some of the names on there are shocking. When I say shocking, they've gone on not to do very well. So if you look at the likes of Junior Bacuna, who was talented but wasn't taking us to the next level. Offerball, who obviously had his challenges off the pitch with the heart condition and stuff, and it was great to see him get some games back under his belt last season. We permanently signed Scott
Lunny
Wright.
was that year.
Who was that?
Lunny was that year. Tom Wright was the year after. Lunny was
John Lundstrom, great shout. So Lunny come in, and then and Fashion Takala. They were the players that we brought in to take us to the next level. And last night I shared it on the group. I watched, I love reminiscing, as the lads know. I watched the 7-minute interview with Gerrard and Chris Boyd and Ali McCoist after the game, and he spoke to the board. We're going to fix the roof while the sun's shining. I use that phrase in work all the time. Now my team hate it, but it's so true that we were in such a strong position that we should have went out there and got 3 or 4 starting 11 players, and we never. So I kind of look back now and go, you get why he's left. Now, don't get me wrong, the Emma Dodds interview away at Bromby, I don't think was the best, because that was kind of like a little bit of a 2 fingers up to people. But by all accounts, it was a difficult environment he was working in, if Mr. King's got anything to say about it. But yeah, whilst I was watching that reminiscent video, I also did see Andy creeping up the stairs to try and soak Alan McGregor with champagne. So that was an interesting watch as well, for a good reminisce.
Andy, before we go on to talk about Steven Gerrard, I saw you have a wry smile when Derek McInnes giving us some tough games was kind of brought up there. Is he just really good at setting up a team? Is just really what was it about his teams that were difficult to play against?
It was just, while I was in Scotland, they were always the team closest. They were always the best of the rest, kind of thing. I've only met Del once or twice outside of football, but obviously he had his Rangers connections. He was doing so well at Aberdeen. Horrible team to play against, organised, physical. They'd find a way to get Buff sent off. They'd wind Jacko up and cause chaos with him. It was just like, and now I'm not involved in, like, I used to love it, proper old school footy, like crazy tackles, like argy-bargy. It was proper. It was one of my first ever away games to 4-2 at their place. JD scored last kick of the game to make it 4-2. And that was one of my first, I'd probably only been there 2 or 3 weeks, and I was like, oh, this is football, I'm here for this. It was class. But obviously we've had plenty of tough games up there over the years, and but yeah, just funny looking back, and yeah, some tough games. And obviously when you go up there and win, it was always really nice. And Jacko's the one I still speak to the most, and that's obviously Jacko's cup final every time we played Aberdeen. So it was always good to see how much stick he'd get every time going up there.
That's good. Steven Gerrard's obviously front runner by an absolute mile at this moment in time. Can you just give us an insight, Andy, into what he's like as a manager, what it's like to be a player under him, and why you feel he's a good fit for a club like Rangers?
Just, you mentioned aura before, just like, especially for me, Liverpool fan growing up, every shirt was Gerrard 8 on the back, and like he was my hero. So, but he's Steven Gerrard, and he's got the aura, he's got the ability to pull players in and make you feel that big when he needs to. I've been on the end of a few of them. He's also made me feel like the best person in the world as well. So he was always honest. He was always fair. Told you the truth, whether you wanted to hear it or not. It was just like what you need from a manager. That's what I thought. He knew how to get a reaction out of everyone. Didn't treat people the same, as in he knew the ones he could fire into and rattle and get you up for it, and he knew the ones he needed to bring in for a chat and a cuddle and when's the right time to do what. So yeah, it was just, for me, obviously it's been really good to work with him for the 6 months over here on the other side of things, and obviously have these conversations and talk about what all the decisions they were making while I was on the other side of it and stuff. So yeah, he's obviously, his name's in the hat, and it is the front runner from the newspapers and stuff. Whether he's going to take it, I've not spoken to him in a couple of weeks, so I can't break that one for you. But yeah, he did. His line today in the Ferdinand thing was he's got unfinished business as a coach and things like that. So he's definitely going to be wanting to jump back into a manager's job at some point. Right club, right time, right opportunity was his words kind of thing. So it'd be interesting to see.
Yeah, absolutely. What everyone's spoken about the standards that are expected by fans at Rangers, but everyone's spoken about the standards that are expected of players at Rangers, and actually the feeling that a lot of recent managers have struggled to kind of match those or instill those within the playing team. What did Steven Gerrard do? Did he do anything, or was it just something that was unspoken but expected, or was there anything that he did to just uphold those standards to that high level?
Well, I think he demands respect, and he's got that personality that he walks in the room and you can feel him before you see him. You know he's there. He's got the aura. Even if all the first team lads there, they've all had good careers, big careers, and stuff like that. But he was still the boss. Everyone knew who the boss was. There was no two ways about it. We all knew who ran the show. So yeah, he obviously just had good people he brought into the dressing room, and I think the thing that gets overlooked so much with the gaff was the clever signings he made of the older lads. We all want to, the way football's going now, it's sign them young and they'll be really good investments and we'll sell them for a lot. And that's so massive in Scotland, where the money isn't as big as other leagues in the world. You need to make money that way. But the January I signed would just sign Jermaine Defoe and Stephen Davis. So we signed two lads in the mid-30s who, on paper, you'd look at and go, how long have they got left? And you look at the leaders in, obviously we signed Griggs the summer before I came, so we've just signed three lads who are all 35, 36, 37. They've all got experience, and from a long-term thing, obviously it's not, you don't want to go and sign a team of lads who are all in the mid-30s, but you need the balance of lads who can run the dressing room for you, who've got their experience. Griggs had done everything at the club. Davo had done everything at the club. JD scored 187 goals in the Prem or whatever it was. He used to tell you every day. Like, you've got people who know what they're doing and have done it before, and so he's got his experience and his leadership off the pitch, but he's also got top people, top characters, top players in the changing room policing itself. He didn't really need to get involved too much in setting the standards. The lads at Griggs would do that for you. Jacko and Davo and Connor Golds and Tav, they'd run the show. They'd demand the standards out of you in training. There's not too many times the gaffer needs to step in and up the training. It's usually the other way down, telling lads to calm down and start trying to bloody snap each other.
Yeah, JB, I think from what Andy's saying there, he speaks about Stephen Davis, speaks about Jermaine Defoe, and you then look at the current squad and you're like, we're really lacking any players like that, really. And I kind of half expected this summer would be a mix of those young and up-and-coming players that we could then look to develop and sell on versus some players that were maybe 30, 31, 32 and just had been around the block a bit and just had that experience would come in. But we never kind of did that side of it. It really feels like the squad at the moment's lacking that level of senior experience, I guess, to lead the dressing room. And I guess it's one of the accusations we as fans have thrown at the team and the squad is the lack of leadership on that park and in the apparent lack of leadership in the dressing room altogether. Is that something you feel's missing in a sort of glaring hole at the moment?
Yeah, I would say so. And to Andy's point there, some of the lads he's just mentioned didn't play every week. So Jermaine Defoe wasn't the first name on the team list. Stephen Davis was rotated quite a lot. Obviously, McGregor obviously held the sticks. But then you had like your Connor Goldsons who didn't seem to shut up. You know, like whenever you've seen him, he's always moaning, which I loved. During the 55 season, because you could hear so much commentary, it was always at it, setting standards. I think where Russell Martin was unlucky, or when I say unlucky, the recruitment didn't get it right. I think we should have signed 3 or 4 old arses who could have came in there and give us a little bit of a spine. So happy with Butland. You give you the kind of your goalkeeping voice. Connor Cody was one that we know, as we've discussed a few times on the pod, that came very close, and Rangers pulled out for whatever reason. I think that would have, you hear the way Connor Cody spoke about the club the other day, on a pod, I'm not sure it was a 5 Live maybe or something, but he spoke like Jermaine Defoe spoke about the club, and the way Steven Gerrard spoke about the club, the way Andy's speaking about the club, almost players who understand of what a big club mentality should look and feel like. Now, Cody's obviously seen it at Liverpool, so again, he'd be able to touch on some of them experiences. But he'd have been a fantastic signing, not to take us to the next level from a playing ability, but just to give you that leadership both on and off the pitch. I think that would have been, he'd have been a good signing. Kenny McLean would have been a really good sign, a really clever signing for us. Again, wouldn't have took you to the next level, wouldn't have been playing 60 games a season, but just having him in and around the trenches, setting standards, keeping people right. He was probably unlucky with injuries, in terms of the time. I think he missed the pre-season, which would have come up to speed. And I dare say it's somebody like a Jamie Vardy, who no doubt would have had offers, but just having an old arse kicking round, a Jermaine Defoe type, just giving you an outlet, an option, knowing when to hold the ball, when to be cute, when to get in the referee's face. Having if you had them three to this Rangers team, again, not saying playing wise, it would have took us to the next level. Guarantee we wouldn't have got ourselves into the position that we got ourselves into, which was bullied at times, outworked, outran, outfought. It wouldn't have been a fun place to be if them three were coming off the pitch after a defeat. Whereas I get the impression with some of these lads, they're coming off the pitch and just shrugging their shoulders and go, "We'll try again next week, eh, lads." I don't think that's what we need moving forward. And to Andy's point earlier, them signings we made in the January window, when he come in, I think we'd have to do something like that in this January in order to take us to that next level. Whether it be like a James Milner type, or or a Jamie Vardy back from Italy, or I think we'd need 2 or 3 like that to kind of set the tone to start building to look forward.
Yeah, it'll be really interesting to see how we approach that, and I guess that'll be dictated by who the next manager is. Andy, Jermaine Defoe and Gary McAllister have both spoken in the last few days and seem up for it if Steven Gerrard would bring them back. What's it like to, I guess, more so Gary McAllister than Jermaine Defoe, because Jermaine was still playing when you were there, but what's it like to work under Gary McAllister, and what's he like in and around the training ground?
Great guy. Crossed paths with him slightly at Liverpool when he came in with Brendan as his assistant for a couple of months. The last 2 or 3 months, Brendan was the manager. So met him properly the first time then, but obviously got a lot closer at Rangers. Just loves his golf, doesn't he? Just a great fella. Loves his golf. He just loves talking football. He was someone who he almost felt like, not one of the lads, but like he felt like you could sit down and have a coffee with him for an hour and just chat about everything other than football. The managers obviously said he was kind of brought in as the one who was more experienced. Obviously, TC, the gaffer, Bealsley were all fairly young in the early 40s kind of thing. Didn't really have as much experience-wise on the coaching side of things. But obviously, Gazmat coming from Scotland, knowing the league, and he was kind of brought in as the elder statesman of the staff. And yeah, couldn't say a bad word about Gaz. Great fella.
Yeah, JB, he seemed like that sort of, probably the closest you'll get to Ali McCoist, kind of coming in and just being that
Character.
The character and the conduit between the players and the manager kind of thing. It's quite rare to see people like that, but they're probably and I think they were roommates, I think, when they were players together for Scotland, stuff like that. But just kind of 2 of those guys that you think they're made for that position.
Yeah, no, most definitely. Yeah, you kind of see it in all really good working relationships from a football perspective. There's always kind of the good guy, bad guy. I'd imagine the players would know. Imagine if Gary McAllister's head went, everyone would just be like that, because he would almost be that balance and that kind of get himself right in the mix of it. Again, you don't want to criticise the coaching teams too much of what we've had over the last few years, but none of them have seemed relatable. Like if I think about the coaches Gio brought in, Clement brought in, they were just like, there was no they didn't, from a fan's perspective, and again, it's more important that they're inspirational to the players, but this didn't seem to be that relatable. Like you felt as if at times, like poor Michael Beale, when he was going through a tough time, it looked as if he was out there on his own, and it was almost a case of everyone was in at him. That Aberdeen game that his last game was tragic in terms of he tried to stand up in front of it, and it was kind of no support from round about. And Gio was a little bit the same towards the end. They were all there when we made it to Seville. They were all on the pitch with the scarves, looking running around, singing John Lundstrom's the best on earth and that. But I think when it came to the crunch, it didn't feel as if he had that support. But I almost felt under Gerrard, between Michael Beale and your man McAllister and the other who's the other lad? His name's escaped me.
Tommy Culshaw,
yeah, sound. So between these guys seem to be all in it together. Do you know what I mean? And they all seemed all in, and it was almost a case of that's a really strong unit. And it was really interesting hearing Gerrard on the Rio show the other day to say he's I can't recall ever hearing a manager or an ex-manager say this. I'm working really hard on my team behind the scenes to make sure that I get that when I do come back, I'm kind of ready. And he's had conversations with people. As I say, with a bit of luck, that'll be accelerated. My view, the Michael Beale one will be an interesting one, because I'm sure Andy could give us a bit of insight as to his coaching ability, because everyone just raves about him. Didn't work out well for us, unfortunately. But does he need to try and maybe bring in someone like Neil Critchley, who Andy will probably be familiar with the time at Liverpool? Does he come in and support Gerrard with the Defoe and somebody else? Again, these are the type of things that I hope if it's going to be him, he builds himself with a similar team, because he knows what good looks like.
Yeah, I won't ask you the Michael Beale question, Andy, because I can't imagine he's coming back, to be honest, and especially so soon after what happened. I guess it's Beale a year ago. Is it a year ago? I'm not even sure.
No, it must be two. Because come on, won a League Cup.
Sorry, did
you?
Yeah,
come on, did the year, and then obviously Barry took us till the end of the season, and obviously.
There you go. They're all merging into one for me. But
what would your thoughts, Craig, be as a fan if Gerrard was to come in and say, "I'm bringing Michael Beale and Gary McAllister back with me and Culshaw"? What would your view be?
I mean, it wouldn't be great, but I'm not going to stand up and get annoyed about it. I think it's more if Gerrard feels that's right, then we've kind of got to back his view and back his opinion. I think he would have to do a lot of mending bridges and stuff like that with a lot of people, but it wouldn't bother me, to be honest. It's maybe a bit, I don't know. Michael Beale, I always thought, was a really nice guy. He clearly had good coaching ability. He's spoken before about all the other stuff he got landed with when he became manager, and he didn't know how to handle that and managing the team, and he felt he was distracted and all that sort of stuff. And you can, with the old board and the old owners, you can completely see that being the case. But I also don't think he helped himself, to be honest, with the inflexibility in terms of formation, with the square pegs, round holes, all of that sort of stuff. So I don't have anything against him as a guy or anything like that. And if he was to come in as assistant manager, I just wouldn't want him to be manager again. But I don't think that's going to happen, to be honest. But if Steven Gerrard thought it was right, then I'd probably rather have Steven Gerrard than not have Steven Gerrard. So it's probably something you would just let bygones be bygones for that one. But Andy, in terms of Steven Gerrard, is he someone you'd like to see back at Ibrox? And what do you think would be his motivation to come back to Rangers for a second spell? I guess he spoke in the Rio Ferdinand podcast about unfinished business as a manager, and what would that be his motivation in terms of potentially he thought he could achieve more, or he thinks he could achieve more with Rangers, or actually going back to Rangers could propel him into that space again where he's being considered for top jobs? What do you think would be his motivation?
Well, it's just it was obviously he loved his time there. He obviously had his reasons to go to Villa. Like we mentioned in the interview before, after we won the league, it was let's fix the roof while the sun's shining, as all top teams do or try to do anyway. And he then obviously had his reasons to go to Villa. So it's a tough one. Would I as a Rangers fan sitting here, if I could pick a Rangers manager, well, I'm not going to pretend. I'm not going to say I wouldn't want Steven Gerrard on the sideline at Rangers again. Of course I would. Not to dodge the Bealsy one as well. Bealsy's the best coach I've worked with in football by an absolute landslide. Bealsy is top. I understand it's a slightly different situation that he's then gone back and managed the club and it didn't quite work out how everyone wanted it to. But like obviously we may as well just bring Rio on the chat here as well. But you said, he got his team at Rangers 100% bang on the money. The balance between the gaff, obviously speaking from a player's point of view, the balance from the staff, we knew exactly who was doing what from the staff. The message was always crystal clear, whether it was tactical, whether it was motivational. TC, Gazmak, Bealsy and the gaffer had it down to a T. And there was no hiding places, there was no grey areas, whether it was like little individual, tiny little details that Bealsy could pick up with his coaching, or just the gaffer being that manager, the motivator, just knowing how to get every inch out of every player on the pitch. The four of them had it down to a T. So yeah, Bealsy, I can't speak highly enough about him. I know he divides a lot of opinion in Scotland, and that's absolutely fine. But from my experience, unbelievable coach. But again, didn't play with him, didn't play under him as a manager. At first team level, had him at 15, 16 ready, so I know what he's like as a manager in the youth teams. Obviously, being a manager at Rangers is a slightly different kettle of fish, but couldn't speak highly enough of him as a coach individually. But, and again, going back to what the gaffer said on Rio's podcast, he got his team down to a T, and you could tell, you're right what you say before, JB, about times when things aren't quite going well, but managers, you can tell managers just look so isolated on the touchline sometimes, and you just feel like you're desperate for one of his assistants to just go and stand with him, just look like there's someone else backing him up. And I feel like at Rangers that worked. There was always people with the gaffer. He was never stood on his own. Like, there was always other people. It was a team of, it was a staff team. It wasn't just the manager taking all the shit on his own, stood there looking face like thunder, and everyone else is hiding on the bench. They were always there together.
Yeah, I think that's very fair. Right, JB, I'm going to bit of devil's advocate here. It's not Steven Gerrard as the manager. He's turned it down for whatever reason. Looking at the other candidates, so Kevin Muscat, I believe his team, Shanghai Port, are 2 points ahead in the league with 4 games left. He's probably unlikely to leave in that situation. I think their league finishes end of November. So to me, that probably rules him out unless something a bit crazy happens in terms of his decision making, or we have an interim between now and the end of November, which I can't see the club doing or wanting, to be honest. You then look at Derek McInnes, you look at where Hearts are, you look at the level of expectation there is at Hearts versus the level of expectation there is at Rangers, you look at the state of both squads. Is that a job you think, if you were in his shoes, you would take?
Yeah, I would, yeah. You know what I mean? I'd take it in the shoes I'm in now. Hey, if you was my assistant in there, I'd be flying Andy back for the coaching badge for the coaching job for the goalies. But yeah, I think it is. You mean he rejected Rangers once before, and obviously then we went on to when we went on to get Gerrard in. And it was decided then, I think a lot of people in Rangers' eyes, that was his chance. By all accounts, he had his reasons for not taking it. And when you've only got to look at the basket case of a club that he would have been coming into at the time, the whole carry on post Pedro and Graham Murty doing handstands and stuff, it wouldn't have been a good time for him to come in, and he would have you would have knew he was only getting one crack at it. Derek McInnes wasn't coming in, mightn't do too well, then might get another shot at it in a few years. He was going to have to come in and make it his own, and make it his own very quickly. Where I would feel sorry for him is, again, as I said earlier, he would have to be flying. There has to be a flying star for him to come in. I think one thing he would do, he knows the league inside out. I think his teams in Europe have set up okay over the years as well. Not won much, but again, put that potentially down to a little bit of the personnel, but always looks well organised and drilled. I wouldn't be adverse, but I think I've gone too far the other way now with Gerrard. I shouldn't have started reminiscing last night. I'm kind of I'm all in type of thing. But no, I think he's. I think obviously there's a phrase, he gets it. People hate that phrase. He gets it because at the end of the day, we just want a really good football manager, and it doesn't matter whether he gets it or not. We are a unique club. The standards that are set aren't like anything else. I don't think that would intimidate him. I don't think that would scare him. He's seen it as a player. He'll know the league very well. He'll know his opposition very well. I don't imagine we'll go up to games and he'd be shocked by a plastic pitch. Like when the Rangers played on plastic pitches this season, the players looked as if they didn't know how to play that pitch. Again, you'd have all of these little Scottish football anomalies that he would be more than comfortable with, and I think he'd be a really good fit. Again, he would be my third choice, just for clarity. He'd be probably my third choice behind Gerrard and Muscat for me right now.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think the vast majority of people are on the Gerrard train, to be honest. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes. We've just passed the hour mark. It's been a very quick hour and a great chat. Andy, just before we leave, you're out in Saudi just now. How much are you enjoying it? How much of a different way of life is it? And what's it? How much are you enjoying the goalkeeping coaching role with Ali Tafak?
Yeah, it's class. Coaching was something I was always going to do. I was actually offered the choice to stop playing and go into full-time coaching at 18 by Liverpool, and turned it down because I felt like I could still crack on and make a career out of the game. So, but it was something that I knew I was going to do. The second I was ready to stop playing football, I always thought I'd be 40 and couldn't walk, and then I'd have to stop playing and start coaching instead. But obviously Steven rang and the opportunity came to come out here, and the timing was just right. I didn't have any ties at home really. I've got my wife here with me, no mortgage, no kids at the time, so it was just like it's a free hit. Good chance to move abroad, try something completely different. First time working in a first team environment on the coaching side with the whole staff I knew from either Liverpool or Rangers, so it was like just really easy to come over here and have so many people I know, but also learn so much on the job from people who've done it before. Obviously, John was Liverpool's first team goalie coach for 10 years and he's won everything in the game. And then all the Liverpool and other Liverpool and Rangers staff that Steven had brought over here, it was just, yeah, it was a no-brainer. Not missing playing at all. Missed the training more than I missed the playing, obviously. I know I didn't play too many games at Rangers, but it was just, I just missed part. That's the part I missed the most, the training, the 5-0s, the lads in the changes being idiots, and we had plenty of them up there. So yeah, that's the thing I missed the most. But yeah, the coaching's been really good. It's still fairly young in my coaching career, but it's been a good first step into men's footing. I'm loving it out here.
Oh, that's great. And there's obviously the Saudi Arabian league has grown exponentially the last few years. There's a lot of, no one's really quite sure what the standard of the league is like in terms of how good or where it sort of sits in comparison to others. But how would you assess the standard of the league in Saudi Arabia? It's really mixed.
Being as honest as I can be, like you look at some of the names in the league. There's some players. There's some top players. So when I'm going through doing my reports for the goalies to sit down and I'm looking at the front line of Felix, Mane, Ronaldo, Duran, it's like you had them four up front are all right, so we need to be careful. So the standard gets laughed at a lot back home in the UK. It's always apart from Ronaldo's goals will always go online. It's always the things that you see that happen in games that are funny or silly mistakes or things that just look different to what you'd expect in the UK, which is why sometimes it gets the bad light shed on it at times. But there's some proper players. Obviously, you're limited to each squad. You can only have your 8 foreigners in a match day squad. So every squad's got, whatever the maths is, 13 Saudis in there. So, but the whole thing is to get Saudi ready for the World Cup in 10 years or 8 years' time now. So it's a perfect opportunity for the Saudis to get into the league and test themselves against Ronaldo's and your Manes and all the superstars, and Darwin Núñez has come over here now. So it's like is giving the Saudis a perfect chance to get in with the big boys. And obviously, when they've got as much money as they has as a country, and they can afford to bring in these superstars from all over the world, it's giving the Saudis an 8-year practice to get the best 23 of them ready for the World Cup when it comes here in 8 years' time. So it's a project that's obviously still fairly new. Obviously, Ronaldo was kind of the first person to make the move, and then obviously a lot of people has followed over here. So it's still fairly new, and brand new things are being built, and all the stadiums and the training grounds, and there wasn't too much infrastructure in place at a lot of clubs. So things will take time to get where they want it to go, but there's some proper players in this league, and there's some proper teams in this league, and we've had a few long nights against some of the big boys who've got a lot of money to spend. So yeah, there's definitely some good teams and some good players. But again, like at the other end of the league, there's also some teams that aren't quite as good, but it's the exact same in every other league.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Andy, thank you very much for joining us. It's been an absolute pleasure and been great to have you on. Hopefully, we can welcome you on a little bit later down the line on the podcast again, whenever the time might suit you. But really appreciate you coming on. And JB, as always, thank you for your insight as well. I feel a bit outnumbered tonight being the only Scottish guy on here, but it's a bit of a strange one. But
I thought you were going to go for the baldy joke there.
I thought that was shiny heads. sit between the Mitchell brothers.
I went for the accent rather than the hair, but it could go either way. But no, thank you very much, guys, and thank you very much everyone for listening. If you enjoyed the podcast, please do remember to like the video and subscribe to the TII YouTube channel or wherever you get your audio podcasts, Spotify, Apple Music, etc. Helps out massively and means you don't miss out on any upcoming content. But thank you very much, everyone, for listening. We'll be back on Thursday night with Kieran and the guys. But until next time.